In the tirelessly bustling heart of New York City, where skyscrapers stitched their mesmerizing patterns against an autumnal sky, Jace Callahan drifted amidst the crowds, a man of formidable triumphs ensnared by an indefinable longing. Once, he had relished the adrenaline-pounding victories gained in court, each win another jewel in his crown as one of Manhattan's fiercest defense attorneys. But lately, the high-ceilinged offices with panoramic views felt confining, their steel and glass sheen cold, reflecting his own burgeoning dissatisfaction. Jace was known for his ferocious dedication, yet beneath his polished exterior lay a man struggling against an invisible tide. Shoulders always squared, he wore his tailored suits as armor, the sharp angles of each garment mirroring his meticulously crafted persona. However, that October afternoon, as he stared out at the city sprawl beneath him from his office's 24th-floor window, he saw not the triumph of industry, but the creeping insignificance of achievements in the face of inner emptiness. An unexpected wind gust rattled the pane, drawing Jace's gaze skyward, where clouds bunched like untold stories waiting to be unraveled. It was then that his thoughts drifted, as they often did in moments of stillness, to softer corners of his past, a time when he was still wide-eyed, his life defined not by legal battles, but by the warm, gentle presence of a woman who had once been his whole world. Margaret Matthews, his nanny, held a place carved deep within the well of his childhood memories. Her name alone was a melody accompanying the rhythm of his childhood, a refuge of kindness amidst the fevered chaos of his parents' ambitious lives. They had been heavyweights in the corporate world, their passion for business rivaling their understanding of parenthood. Margaret had been his pillar, her voice soothing and strong, guiding him through the labyrinth of adolescence with unwavering patience and love. Despite his professional acclaim, Jace had never forgotten the solace she provided during those formative years. Memories of afternoons spent baking in her small but lively kitchen, the aroma of cinnamon and vanilla swirling around them as naturally as laughter, were treasures he held close. Margaret's stories were rich tapestries, painting the world in colors he had since forgotten how to see. She was the silent architect of his resilience, the hidden force that whispered of empathy in a world that often seemed devoid of it. The realization struck him suddenly, like the final tug that draws the anchor from the ocean floor, an awareness that he needed to reconnect with this cornerstone of his past and navigate the present. Margaret had given him countless hours of unwavering support without ever expecting anything in return. Now, amidst his own success and recently acquired wealth, he recognized a profound necessity to repay her kindness and perhaps, in doing so, find the peace he had been missing. But where to begin? The distance of 30 years loomed dauntingly, blurred by time's relentless sweep. He had tried sporadically to track her through social media and community forums, only to find vague mentions and disconnected leads. Yet the time felt different now, imbued with urgency, an intrinsic call that brooked no delay. Where his professional strategies held no sway, he found himself surrendering instead to more personal methods. So began his journey, a pilgrimage of sorts, tracing back through the alleys of memory and the streets of their past neighborhood. It was a process marked by dead ends and small discoveries, their significance tangled in a web of nostalgia and regret. This was more than a search for a person. It was a quest for meaning, for a way to reconcile not only with Margaret, but with his own shifting identity. A breakthrough came via a retired teacher Jace remembered from his school days, a woman who recalled Margaret's commitment to community service. Her words crystallized into a lead that burned with promise, hinting at a town some hours' drive away, wherein Margaret was said to have found roots. As autumn waned, he set out, transforming what free time existed between cases into his personal mission. The journey served as a reflection, with each mile marking Jace's own evolution. Every leaf-strewn street and rust-coated town entrance he passed echoed with echoes of laughter, shared wisdom, and the unstinting care he had received from a woman who had woven herself into the very fabric of his being. He wondered if she be the same woman who lived in his memory, or if time had sculpted her differently, as it did everyone. And then, one day, the search ended. He stood before her home, a small cottage veined with ivy and fortified by towering maples. The sun gloved the landscape with golden fingers, whispering through branches like a benediction. Even from the gate, he felt a familiar warmth emanating from the home, a sanctuary very much like the one Margaret had created in his childhood. With a deep breath, Jace made his way to the door, heart hammering with a mix of anticipation and trepidation. As he knocked, the final piece of a long-neglected puzzle trembled into place within him. When the door opened, moments later, and he found himself face-to-face with a visage aged by love and time but still achingly familiar, Jace realized the journey had only just begun. Margaret's immediate recognition, the slight widening of her eyes before her face broke into an effulgent smile, confirmed that some bonds truly transcend the fleeting passage of time. Jace, she breathed, her voice wrapping around his name like an embrace. The sound was a gentle rebirth, a resurgence of hope within the ashes of his uncertainty. It was in that moment he knew this reunion was not just about gratitude, but about creating a legacy that honored their shared history and future. The world outside Margaret's small cottage seemed to fade away, leaving only the quiet, profound connection between Jace and the nurturing figure before him. The moment hung like mist in the chill autumn air, heavy with unspoken understandings. Yet underneath the surface of their joyous reunion simmered the threads of a story still unraveling, echoing with shared pasts and silent struggles. They stood in the doorway, light spilling out from behind Margaret, casting a gentle halo around her slender form. Looking around, Jace was immediately struck by how the place bore her signature, modest yet filled with warmth, every corner animated by a loving touch. An old cuckoo clock ticked rhythms to the heartbeats of time long spent, a soundscape familiar and comforting. The air was rich with the scent of her famous cinnamon apple pie, instantly pulling him into a cocoon of nostalgia. "Come in, dear," Margaret invited, stepping aside with the same natural elegance that had once filled his childhood days with grace. Her voice was a balm, a soothing melody over the static noise of years and miles. As Jace crossed the threshold, he felt a visceral sense of coming home, his polished shoes suddenly out of place on the threadbare rug welcoming his return. The living room was a delightful hodgepodge of memories. Walls lined with books stretched toward the ceiling, their spines telling stories not just through their titles, but through the careful hands that had turned their pages over countless afternoons. Family photos peppered the room, and Jace recognized himself in several from a time when the world was still simple and open to discovery. They settled, mugs of warm cider cradled between their hands as the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold. Jace studied Margaret, noting the silver strands threading her hair, the soft creases around her eyes, each mark an emblem of time's passage, yet detailing a life brimmed with enduring affection and resilience. "You look well," Jace began, his words laden with sincerity. "Life has treated you kindly, I hope?" Margaret's eyes twinkled with laughter. "These wrinkles have stories to tell, and these hands," she displayed them briefly, still as steady as he remembered, "have cradled many a little heart since yours left my care. Life here is peaceful, though not without its own challenges." This last admission quieted the room, and Jace hesitated before asking, an intuition whispering that the challenges she spoke of were more than mere inconveniences. "Is there anything you need, Margaret? Anything at all?" Her pause was telling, the way her gaze met his, discerning yet unobtrusive. "The children around here, Jace," Margaret said slowly, thoughtfully choosing her words. "Many of them face hardships, growing up so fast, forgetting they have the right to be carefree. I volunteer, try to help as I can. But there's only so much an old woman like me can do." Jace's heart squeezed with understanding. He had felt this emptiness in the lives of others, shades of his own youthful loneliness reflected back at him. Here was the woman who had stitched love into his very being, now trying to do the same for other children, a selfless act that filled him with admiration and a renewed urgency to help. "How can I make a difference?" he asked, leaning forward, his tone earnest and brimming with determination. "What can we do?" Margaret's smile deepened, becoming the gentle anchor to what felt like a burgeoning sea of possibilities. Her finger tapped thoughtfully at her chin as she considered his question, her eyes alight with a spark he had often seen when she was wrapping a gift with not just paper, but with a heart. "Perhaps a place," she mused after a moment, "a refuge, somewhere they can learn, grow, and be seen beyond their circumstances. A community center, maybe." Jace assimilated her suggestion with a sober nod, the glimmers of a plan taking shape. "I have the resources and the time," he confessed. "Let me help establish this dream of yours, Margaret. It can be a monument to the hope you've given me and so many others." Their conversation flowed like an uncharted river, weaving through the intricacies of ambition, nostalgia, and the promise of change. Ideas exchanged as naturally as the flurry of autumn leaves outside that danced with the subtle grace of a lifetime shared. With each passing word, Jace felt the chains of his former dissatisfactions breaking, as though Margaret's humility and strength had unlocked a chamber within him, one filled with a dormant longing to facilitate more than just legal victories, to breathe life into enduring legacies. A silence settled between them, comfortable, reflective, as they sipped their drinks, the warmth coursing through like a shared heartbeat. Margaret's features softened, exuding deep gratitude and pride for the man who sat before her, one whose journey toward success had not eroded his essence, but had given him the means to carry forward her eternal message of care and resilience. "You always had the heart," she said eventually, voice thick with emotion. "I'm just so glad to see you use it to mold a world for the better." As dusk melted into night, enveloping them in shadows that bore witness to their renewed companionship, Jace embraced the journey ahead. He knew there would be challenges, layers of bureaucracy and resistance perhaps, but also a profound joy in shaping dreams alongside Margaret. The unexpected revelation that day was not merely about circumstance but about awakening, finding purpose in giving back, rediscovering identity through acts of kindness. As they sat side by side, watching the indigo night unveil its stars, an unbreakable bond was re-established, a poignant reminder that some ties, once woven, only grow more luminous with time. Jace stood at the precipice of a new chapter, an undiscovered country that felt as fresh and unyielding as the first steps he took as a boy under Margaret's nurturing gaze. Returning to the frenetic heartbeat of New York, his mind was a carousel spinning with plans. The air around him, usually choked with the harsh tang of industry, felt different this time, lighter, flavored with the scent of impending renewal. The autumn chill enveloped the city in its brisk embrace, yet warmth spread within him, fueled by a newfound purpose. He spent countless hours in his office, long luxurious beams of morning light igniting the dust motes which danced like tiny specters around him. The sound of paper sliding against his desk, the clicking of keyboards, and the low murmur of phone conversations formed a symphony to his work. Each legal challenge, every logistical hurdle was tackled with a resolve that Margaret's words had ignited, a promise to build something tangible from her unfaltering hope. Jace's persistence did not go unnoticed. Colleagues whispered in curious tones, observing the fierce determination their usually composed partner now radiated. Headlines, usually sequestered to his courtroom victories, began to swirl around his philanthropic ventures. The excitement felt as wild and intoxicating as stepping into a new world brimming with vibrant potential. Collaborators from diverse walks of life joined his mission. Community leaders, architects with visions of boundless spaces, even former clients who appreciated his zeal for justice now eager to advocate for societal change. The project became an awakening for each person involved, a testament to Margaret's far-reaching influence distilled into brick and mortar. In hushed meetings, diagrams unfurled, revealing expansive halls designed to echo laughter and learning, rooms dedicated to arts and education, a garden nurturing both flora and dreams. The community center was not simply a building in Jace's eyes. It was a chrysalis of opportunities, meant to shelter and empower. The approvals cascaded in, like an unyielding tide finally turning, one molded by the kindness sown by Margaret. A brisk November morning approached as the center neared completion, snow teasing the edges of the sky. Jace made the journey back to Margaret's neighborhood with a heart that quivered with anticipation. He parked along the familiar tree-lined street, each step along the cobblestone path an echo of the journey that had led him here, a journey back into her wisdom-filled arms. Entering Margaret's cottage felt like capturing a piece of eternity. The world outside whispered with the anticipation of an awaited revelation, each bare branch tapping gently against the windows as if urging him forward. "Jace, my boy," Margaret greeted him, her voice the tender mortar that years could never erode. He smiled as they settled in once more over tea, the room brimming with a comfort that bridged past and present. "This gift," he began slowly, feeling the depth of each word, "is not just bricks and beams. It is the soul of your devotion, a sanctuary where others will find the same solace and belief you gave me." The air hummed softly as Margaret listened, absorbing the gravity of his intentions. Her eyes, still bright as the azure skies she watched over him beneath, filled with unspoken words. "It is more than I wished for, Jace," she said finally, her voice carrying the weight of 1,000 unvoiced gratitudes. "It's a chance for these children to dream boundlessly, a place where they can learn what love and identity truly mean." They spoke of the unveiling, of the generations it would touch, weaving their hearts together through visions and hopes like poets scribbling binding lines of verse. Time seemed to crystallize as the plans unfurled like petals beneath Margaret's gentle gaze, her wisdom etching an indelible mark upon each element. The opening day dawned under a sky strewn with winter's breath, snowflakes like tiny stars blessing the world in gleaming silence. Arriving at the center, Jace paused to take in the building, its presence majestic yet inviting, a discreet homage to Margaret's nurturing essence. People gathered in droves, bundled against the cold but warmed by their anticipation. A ribbon of vivid crimson captured the eager attention of hopeful eyes, a a symbol both ceremonious and new. Jace's heart swelled as he walked to Margaret's side, assisting her onto the podium, the air vibrant with shared dreams. The crowd hushed, attentive and poised. Margaret took a moment, her gaze sweeping across the faces, new and old, familiar and foreign. Her voice, when it came, was a soft illumination to the raw silence, a tangible thread that stitched them together. "This is not just a building," she told him, her voice unwavering, "but a place where kindness is currency and dreams are refuge and future. It represents a promise woven through generations, much like the promise of this young man beside me, who once began his journey here, nurtured in love and guidance." Emotion trembled in the identity of the moment, wrapping the community within a cocoon of possibility and unwavering support. As Margaret cut the ribbon, applause rose, transforming into the roar of 1,000 promises fulfilled, 1,000 lives ready for transformation. Jace's eyes met Margaret's, and within their reflection lay a journey of rediscovery, a gift of purpose that had come full circle. She took his hand, gratitude coursing through the connection, as their legacy of love and resilience unfolded into the world. In that moment, Jace recognized the completion of a chapter, yet more importantly, the beginning of countless others scrawled in the ink of hope. Each step backward was indeed a step forward, emanating from the cherished bonds of the past into the limitless horizons of tomorrow. Together, they had not just built a sanctuary for wayward dreams, but had sculpted a testament and legacy to the enduring strength of the human spirit.